2 years after the incident at Murphy's Diner, Derek stood before the United Galactic Assembly addressing representatives from 47 worlds about the transformation that began with his family, breakfast being interrupted by hostile police officers. The assembly chamber filled with beings from across the galaxy listened intently as Derek explained how that confrontation had revealed fundamental truths about human psychology and warrior culture that changed galactic military doctrine forever. Derek's dress uniform displayed medals from 16 different worlds as he began his address to the assembled delegates. 2 years ago, my daughters and I were eating pancakes at a small diner in Phoenix when police officers approached our table with suspicion and hostility, Derek said while holographic displays showed footage from that morning. What happened next demonstrated principles that have become the foundation for military training throughout the galaxy. The assembly watched Derek's composed response to racial harassment, while military analysts provided commentary about specific behaviors that had impressed alien observers. His positioning during the encounter, his protective instincts toward his family, and his calm professionalism under pressure had become textbook examples of proper conduct during civilian confrontations. Training facilities across dozens of worlds use Derek's incident as the standard for psychological resilience. Elder Zephyr from the Etherian Council projected thoughts of appreciation as Derek described the mental discipline required to maintain tactical awareness while appearing non-threatening to civilian witnesses. Human psychological conditioning allows warriors to process multiple consciousness streams simultaneously without performance degradation, Derek explained. This capability gives human forces significant advantages in complex operational environments. General Thane from the reformed Craxan Empire nodded approvingly as Derek discussed emotional control during hostile encounters. The Craxan military had implemented human psychological training methods throughout their forces, with remarkable results. Craxan warriors now demonstrated restraint and tactical thinking that had been impossible before. Learning human mental discipline techniques from instructors trained in Derek's methods. Ambassador Crix presented data showing improved cooperation between former enemy species after they began training together using human psychological principles. Zentaran and Andromedan forces that had fought border wars for decades now worked effectively as integrated units after learning to think like human warriors. Derek's breakfast encounter had created the foundation for unprecedented military cooperation across species boundaries. The Assembly formally adopted human psychological protocols as the galactic standard for military operations, while Derek's incident served as the primary case study for proper conduct under civilian stress conditions. Training academies on 37 worlds now included analysis of Derek's behavior as required coursework for all officer candidates, regardless of species. His dignified response to injustice had become the model for warrior conduct throughout civilized space. Dr. Bennett presented his final research report documenting the psychological advantages that made human warriors so effective in interstellar conflicts. Humans possess unique evolutionary traits combining advanced empathy with tactical effectiveness in ways that other species find difficult to replicate, Bennett explained. Commander Johnson's incident provides perfect documentation of these capabilities under real-world stress conditions. Derek received the Galactic Medal of Honor for his contribution to interspecies cooperation and military effectiveness while his family watched from the assembly gallery. Angela held Maya and Zoe as they observed their father being recognized by representatives from across the galaxy. The twins had grown up knowing that their breakfast being interrupted by police officers had somehow made their daddy important to alien civilizations. The ceremony concluded with the unveiling of a memorial plaque at Murphy's Diner commemorating the location where human psychological superiority was first documented for galactic study. The small restaurant had become an unlikely pilgrimage site for alien visitors seeking to understand human nature and warrior culture. Murphy's granddaughter, Nancy, gave tours explaining how Derek's calm response to harassment had changed galactic history. Derek returned to his duties at the Galactic Training Command facility on Europa, where he oversaw instruction programs for elite forces from 23 species. His curriculum emphasized the psychological principles demonstrated during his confrontation with Phoenix police. while teaching alien warriors to balance tactical awareness with appropriate civilian interaction. The programs produced consistently superior results compared to traditional military training methods. Angela established family support networks for human instructors assigned to train alien forces throughout galactic space, while Maya and Zoe attended integrated schools where children from dozens of worlds learned together. The twins spoke fluent Zenteran and basic Etherian while maintaining pride in their father's role in creating unprecedented cooperation between species that had been enemies before his breakfast encounter. Police departments across Earth had implemented comprehensive training programs emphasizing respect for military personnel and their families following the Murphy's Diner incident. Officer Brooks and his partner Carter had been reassigned to desk duties while departments throughout human space learned proper protocols for interacting with galactic military credentials. Derek's dignified response to their hostility had created lasting changes in law enforcement practices. The Galactic Media Consortium produced documentary programs about Derek's incident that became required viewing in civilian institutions throughout Allied space. His story inspired billions of beings across dozens of worlds, while demonstrating that true strength came from psychological discipline rather than physical capabilities or technological superiority. Derek's example influenced behavior standards for both military and civilian populations. Military historians documented Derek's breakfast encounter as the pivotal moment when humanity transitioned from junior allies to recognized leaders in galactic defense operations. His calm professionalism under civilian hostility had convinced alien species that human psychological conditioning produced warriors worthy of emulation and respect. The incident marked humanity's emergence as the galaxy's premier military training civilization. Derek often reflected on the irony that racist police harassment had elevated humanity's status among galactic civilizations while creating opportunities for unprecedented cooperation between former enemy species. His dignified response to injustice had demonstrated qualities that transcended species boundaries and cultural differences. A simple family breakfast had become the foundation for military doctrine that protected billions of beings across dozens of worlds. The legacy of Murphy's Diner continued growing as new species joined the Galactic Alliance and requested access to human psychological training methods. Derek's encounter with hostile police officers had created a standard for warrior conduct that influenced military operations throughout civilized space. His daughters would inherit a galaxy where human psychological principles guided interspecies cooperation and mutual respect, based on shared appreciation for dignity under pressure. 1 year after the incident at Murphy's Diner, the United Galactic Assembly convened an extraordinary session to formalize humanity's role as the primary military training civilization for the galaxy. Representatives from 47 worlds gathered on the neutral station orbiting Proxima Centauri to vote on proposals that would reshape galactic military doctrine based on psychological principles demonstrated by Derek during his confrontation with Phoenix police officers. Secretary General Vorthan of the Galactic Assembly called the session to order while Derek stood at attention in his new dress uniform, displaying the insignia of Galactic Training Coordinator. The assembly chamber buzzed with anticipation as delegates prepared to vote on the most significant military restructuring in galactic history. Derek's breakfast encounter had evolved into legislation that would affect billions of beings across dozens of star systems. The Etherian delegation presented their formal analysis of human psychological superiority based on telepathic studies conducted during the past year. Elder Moran projected her thoughts to the assembly as she described human mental resilience that exceeded anything encountered in their species' long history of consciousness research. Humans possess natural psychological balance that allows optimal performance under stress conditions that would overwhelm other species, she communicated to the gathered representatives. General Thane from the Corvan Empire addressed the assembly with grudging respect for human capabilities that his warrior culture had learned to appreciate. The Corvan military has trained alongside human instructors for 6 months, and our combat effectiveness has improved significantly, Thane admitted. Human psychological conditioning produces warriors who maintain tactical awareness while displaying appropriate restraint during civilian interactions. Ambassador Crix presented Zentaran research data, showing improved performance among their forces after implementing human training methods. Our soldiers demonstrate increased resilience and better decision-making under pressure since learning human psychological techniques, Crix reported. The Zentaran Federation formally requests expansion of human military instruction programs throughout our defense forces. Dr. Bennett testified about his research findings that had documented human psychological advantages across multiple stress scenarios. Humans consistently outperform other species in maintaining emotional control while processing tactical information under hostile conditions, Bennett explained. Their evolutionary development produced unique mental capabilities that should be studied and replicated throughout galactic military forces. Commander Zelix from the Andromedan Collective described dramatic improvements in their elite guard units after training with human instructors. Andromedan physiology provides superior strength and speed, but human psychology provides superior mental discipline, Zelix acknowledged. Combined training produces more effective warriors than either species achieves independently. The assembly reviewed footage from Derek's diner encounter, while military analysts highlighted specific behaviors that had impressed alien observers. Derek's positioning during the confrontation demonstrated tactical principles that had been incorporated into training programs across multiple worlds. His calm response to hostility had become the standard for proper conduct during civilian protection missions. Fleet Admiral Chen presented the Galactic Defense Council's formal recommendation that humanity be designated as the primary source for military psychological training throughout the Allied territories. Human training methods consistently produce superior results in stress conditioning, emotional control, and tactical decision-making, Chen stated. The Council requests authority to establish human-led training facilities on key worlds throughout the galaxy. The vote proceeded with overwhelming support, as representatives from 45 worlds approved the measure establishing humanity as the galaxy's premier military training civilization. Only 2 species abstained, citing concerns about sharing sensitive military information, but even they acknowledged the effectiveness of human psychological conditioning methods. Derek watched in amazement as his breakfast encounter officially changed humanity's role in galactic civilization. Secretary General Vorthan announced the Assembly's decision, while Derek received formal recognition as the first Galactic Military Psychology Coordinator. Commander Johnson, your conduct during a civilian encounter demonstrated principles that will now guide military training throughout the Allied worlds, Vorthan declared. Your dignified response to injustice has created unprecedented cooperation between species based on shared respect for human psychological capabilities. The Assembly approved funding for 50 new training facilities staffed by human instructors who would teach alien forces the mental discipline observed in Derek's confrontation with police officers. The program would begin with elite units from 12 species before expanding to include regular military forces across the galaxy. Human psychological principles would become standard doctrine for Allied military operations. Derek's new responsibilities included establishing curriculum standards for interspecies training programs, while maintaining the psychological conditioning methods that made human warriors so effective. His first facility on Europa would serve as the model for installations throughout galactic space where alien officers would learn to think and respond like human special operations personnel. The Assembly session concluded with delegates expressing gratitude for humanity's willingness to share military knowledge that had previously given humans significant advantages in interstellar conflicts. Derek's response to racist police harassment had convinced alien species that human psychological superiority was worth emulating rather than fearing. Cooperation had replaced competition based on respect for human mental capabilities. Angela received authorization to establish family support programs for human instructors assigned to train alien forces on distant worlds. Maya and Zoe would grow up in an environment where their father's breakfast encounter had created opportunities for children from dozens of species to learn together. The twins attended integrated schools where human psychological principles were taught alongside traditional academic subjects. The Galactic Media Consortium broadcast the assembly session to billions of viewers across Allied worlds, as Derek's story became inspiration for military personnel of all species. His calm professionalism during civilian hostility had demonstrated virtues that transcended species boundaries while showing that true strength came from psychological discipline rather than physical capabilities or technological superiority. News outlets across human space celebrated Derek's recognition, while police departments throughout Earth implemented new training programs emphasizing respect for military personnel and their families. The incident that began with racial prejudice had evolved into galactic acknowledgement of human psychological excellence that changed military doctrine across the civilized galaxy. Derek prepared to begin his new role while reflecting on how a simple family breakfast had transformed his career and elevated humanity's status among galactic civilizations. His dignified response to injustice had created unprecedented opportunities for cooperation between species based on shared appreciation for psychological resilience and proper conduct under pressure. 6 months after Derek's encounter at Murphy's Diner, the galactic military community experienced unprecedented cooperation between species that had been rivals for centuries. The Etherian Council's proposal for joint training exercises had evolved into a comprehensive alliance focused on studying human tactical psychology and implementing those lessons across allied forces. What began as academic interest had transformed into fundamental changes in galactic military doctrine. Derek received orders to report to Admiral Hayes aboard the Titan station for a classified briefing that would change his career trajectory completely. The veteran Navy SEAL had no idea that his simple display of credentials during a racist police encounter had shifted power dynamics across 17 star systems. Hayes prepared to explain how Derek's breakfast had become the foundation for humanity's emerging role as the galaxy's primary military training civilization. The briefing room aboard Titan Station contained representatives from 12 different species, all eager to understand the psychological principles that made human warriors so effective in interstellar conflicts. Derek entered the meeting expecting routine assignment updates, but found himself facing a gathering of the galaxy's most senior military leaders. Admiral Hayes gestured for him to take the central seat as she began explaining the unprecedented situation. Hayes activated holographic displays showing Derek's encounter with the Phoenix Police while highlighting specific moments that had impressed alien military analysts. Commander, your behavior during this incident has generated more interest in human military psychology than any battle we've fought. Hayes explained while the alien representatives watched Derek's reactions carefully. Every species here wants to understand how you maintained such perfect tactical awareness while appearing completely non-threatening to civilian observers. General Vex from the Reformed Craxan Empire leaned forward as he addressed Derek directly. Human warrior, your positioning throughout the encounter showed instincts that our people spend decades trying to develop through intensive training, the battle-scarred alien explained. We request permission to embed Craxan officers with human units to study these natural capabilities. Derek realized that his family breakfast had somehow become an interstellar diplomatic event. The Zenteran Ambassador Crix explained how Derek's footage had revolutionized their understanding of human combat effectiveness during peaceful circumstances. Commander, your ability to assess threats while protecting your offspring demonstrates psychological principles that our military strategists have been trying to replicate for years. Crick stated while displaying Zenteran research data, we formally request human advisors to help train our elite guard units in similar mental discipline. Elder Zephyr from the Etherian Council projected thoughts of admiration directly into Derek's consciousness as she described their telepathic analysis of his mental state during the confrontation. Your mind maintained perfect clarity while processing multiple awareness streams simultaneously, she communicated. Our species possesses advanced mental capabilities, but your natural psychological control exceeded our trained telepaths. Derek struggled to comprehend how breakfast with his daughters had impressed telepathic aliens. Dr. Bennett presented research findings that showed Derek's stress response patterns were typical among human special operations personnel rather than exceptional individual performance. Commander, your behavior represents the standard that human military training achieves consistently, Bennett explained. Other species have requested access to these training methods because they produce psychological resilience that surpasses anything else in the galaxy. Commander Walsh briefed Derek on the security implications of galactic interest in human military psychology. while emphasizing the diplomatic opportunities created by alien respect for human capabilities. Several species have offered significant technological exchanges for access to our training programs, Walsh explained. Your incident has positioned humanity as the galaxy's premier military, instructors based on psychological superiority rather than technological advancement. The Andromedan representative Commander Zelix described how his species possessed superior physical capabilities but lacked the mental resilience demonstrated by human warriors. We can enhance our bodies through genetic modification, but we cannot replicate the psychological conditioning that allows humans to function effectively under extreme stress, Zelix admitted. Our elite forces request human instructors to develop similar mental discipline among our troops. Professor Kell from the Rigel Military Institute explained how Derek's incident had become required study material for officer candidates across dozens of worlds. Commander, your tactical awareness while maintaining non-aggressive appearance has influenced military doctrine throughout the Allied forces, Kell stated. Students from 16 species analyze your behavior to understand proper conduct during civilian protection missions. Derek listened in growing amazement as representatives from species that had fought wars for centuries discussed cooperation based on studying his response to racist police officers. Admiral Hayes explained that the Galactic Defense Council had voted to establish humanity as the primary source for military psychological training throughout the Allied territories. Derek's breakfast encounter had convinced alien species that human warriors possessed unique capabilities worthy of emulation. The meeting concluded with Derek receiving promotion to Galactic Training Coordinator with responsibility for developing programs that would teach human military philosophy to alien forces. His first assignment involved training a mixed unit of Centauran Craxan and Etherian soldiers who had been enemies just years before. Derek's encounter with police officers at a Phoenix diner. Irony wasn't lost on Derek that racist confrontation had led to humanity being recognized as the galaxy's premier military instructors. His calm professionalism while facing injustice had demonstrated the exact qualities that made human warriors exceptional across the stars. What had begun as discrimination had become the foundation for unprecedented interspecies cooperation based on respect for human psychological superiority. Derek returned to the Nova Guardian to complete his current assignment while processing the implications of his new role. Angela received notification that their family would be relocating to the Galactic Training Command facility on Europa, where Derek would establish the first interspecies military psychology program. Maya and Zoe would attend schools with children from dozens of different worlds as their father taught alien warriors to think like humans. The consequences of Derek's dignified response to police harassment continued rippling through galactic civilization as species that had never cooperated began working together to understand human psychological principles. Military academies across the galaxy started teaching emotional control and tactical awareness, using methods developed by human trainers who had learned from Derek's example at Murphy's Diner. The incident footage spread through galactic communication networks faster than anyone anticipated, as various alien species discovered unprecedented insight into human warrior psychology. Within 48 hours, military academies across 3 dozen star systems had incorporated Derek's confrontation into their curriculum as a case study of human behavior under pressure. The simple breakfast encounter had become the most analyzed piece of human documentation in galactic history. On the orbital research stations circling Vega Prime, xenobiologist Dr. Yilan Thex studied Derek's biometric data with growing amazement. The Vegan scientist possessed sensory equipment capable of detecting stress hormones and neural activity patterns that revealed the true extent of Derek's self-control during the police encounter. Thex discovered that Derek's stress levels remained remarkably stable despite facing obvious hostility, while protecting his vulnerable family members. The research data showed that Derek's heart rate increased only slightly during the confrontation, while his breathing remained controlled and his muscle tension stayed within normal parameters. Dr. Thex compared these readings to similar stress tests conducted on vegan warriors and found that humans demonstrated superior emotional regulation under circumstances that would overwhelm most other species. Colonel Janet Pierce received urgent communications from galactic allies requesting detailed information about human military training methods. The requests came from species that had previously shown little interest in human military philosophy, but now wanted to understand how such emotional control could be developed and maintained. Pierce found herself scheduling briefings with alien military attachés who had never bothered to study human capabilities before the diner incident. The Andromedan Collective sent a formal diplomatic request for human military advisors to assist with training their elite guard units. Ambassador Zetha explained that Andromedan warriors possessed superior physical capabilities, but lacked the psychological resilience that Derek had demonstrated during his civilian encounter. The collective offered significant technological exchanges in return for access to human training methods. On Kepler Station, military analysts from 12 different species gathered to review every frame of the Murphy's Diner footage. Commander Rilke of the Centaurian Defense Force noted Derek's positioning throughout the encounter and how he maintained tactical advantage while appearing completely non-threatening to civilian observers. The analysis revealed layers of professional skill that most species required decades to develop through specialized training. The militant Corvan Empire issued their first formal statement praising human military effectiveness since the end of their border conflicts 3 years earlier. General Thane acknowledged that Corvan warriors could learn valuable lessons from Derek's demonstration of controlled aggression and protective instincts. The statement surprised diplomatic observers who had never expected such admission from the famously proud Corvan military leadership. Dr. Bennett's research team at the Xenopsychology Institute published preliminary findings that shocked the academic community across multiple worlds. Their analysis suggested that human warriors possessed natural psychological resilience that allowed them to function effectively under stress levels that would incapacitate warriors from other species. The findings challenged previous assumptions about human mental capabilities and evolutionary development. The research revealed that Derek's brain showed activity patterns consistent with simultaneous threat assessment, tactical planning, and emotional regulation while maintaining protective focus on his family. Most alien species required specialized neural modifications to achieve similar multitasking capabilities, but Derek demonstrated these abilities through natural human psychology, enhanced by military training. Admiral Hayes convened an emergency meeting with the Galactic Defense Council leadership to discuss the unexpected attention focused on human military capabilities. The council members expressed concern that too much scrutiny might compromise the effectiveness of human special operations, while acknowledging the diplomatic opportunities created by galactic interest in human training methods. Fleet Admiral Chen from the Tau Ceti defense grid attended the meeting virtually while monitoring border tensions with the unconquered Zetan Empire. Chen warned that the Zetans would certainly analyze the footage for weaknesses in human psychology, while the council debated whether to restrict access to the incident documentation. The decision carried implications for both galactic security and human diplomatic standing. The Etherian Council voted unanimously to establish a formal exchange program with human military academies after studying Derek's mental discipline patterns. Elder Moran explained that Etherian telepaths could sense the extraordinary mental control that Derek maintained throughout the confrontation. The council offered to share their advanced meditation techniques in exchange for access to human stress conditioning methods. Professor Kell at the Rigel Military Institute incorporated Derek's encounter into required coursework for all officer candidates, regardless of species. The professor noted that Derek's behavior demonstrated perfect balance between defensive positioning and non-aggressive appearance that could be applied to diplomatic protection missions throughout the galaxy. Students from 16 different species studied the footage to understand tactical thinking under civilian constraints. The Galactic Media Consortium reported record viewership for human news broadcasts as alien audiences sought additional context for understanding Derek's behavior. Cultural anthropologists across dozens of worlds began studying human family structures and protective instincts to comprehend the emotional drivers behind Derek's tactical responses during the police encounter. Derek continued his regular duties aboard the Nova Guardian while remaining unaware of the academic analysis surrounding his breakfast experience. His commanding officers received classified briefings about the galactic attention, but maintained operational security by treating Derek normally during routine mission assignments. The crew noticed increased communication traffic from alien military attachés, but assumed it was related to standard diplomatic exchanges. Angela received communication requests from journalists and researchers wanting to interview the family about their experience but declined all media contact to protect her daughter's privacy. Maya and Zoe attended school normally, while their teachers received instructions to redirect any questions about their father's military service to appropriate authorities. The incident had transformed from a local police encounter into a galactic phenomenon that influenced military training programs, diplomatic relationships, and academic research across the civilized galaxy. Derek's calm professionalism had provided alien species with insight into human capabilities that changed their understanding of why human warriors had become so effective in interstellar conflicts. 3 weeks after the Murphy's Diner incident, Dr. Carl Bennett found himself leading the most comprehensive study of human military psychology ever undertaken by the galactic scientific community. The Xenopsychology Institute had received funding from 17 different species, all eager to understand the mental processes that allowed Derek to maintain such extraordinary composure under civilian stress conditions. Bennett's team included researchers from 8 worlds working together to analyze every aspect of human warrior development. The investigation revealed that what alien species considered exceptional behavior, humans viewed as baseline performance for their elite military forces. Dr. Bennett interviewed dozens of human special operations personnel and discovered that Derek's response pattern was typical rather than unique among Navy SEAL veterans. This finding shocked alien military leaders who had assumed Derek represented the absolute peak of human capability rather than standard training results. Commander Sarah Walsh from the Galactic Military Intelligence Division joined Bennett's team to assess security implications of the widespread interest in human military methods. Walsh worried that too much information about human psychological conditioning might compromise operational security if hostile species learned to counter human tactical advantages. Her concerns led to classified briefings with human military leadership about protecting sensitive training methods. The research team established testing facilities on Luna Base, where volunteers from various species underwent stress simulation, exercises designed to replicate Derek's experience at the diner. The results consistently showed that humans maintained superior emotional control and tactical awareness compared to other species when protecting family members under hostile civilian conditions. Even experienced alien warriors struggled to match human performance levels. Dr. Yilan Thex arrived from Vega Prime with advanced biometric equipment, capable of monitoring brain activity patterns during stress scenarios. The Vegan scientist worked closely with Bennett's team to understand the neurological basis for human resilience under pressure. Their collaborative research revealed unique human brain chemistry that allowed for simultaneous emotional processing and tactical analysis without performance degradation. The investigation attracted attention from the Corvin War Academy, where General Thane had been studying human combat effectiveness since the border conflicts ended. Thane sent a delegation of Corvin military psychologists to observe the research and compare findings with their own analysis of human warriors encountered during previous conflicts. The Corvin data supported Bennett's conclusions about human psychological superiority. Admiral Hayes received daily briefings about the investigation while managing increasing requests for human military advisors from alien governments. The Admiral found herself balancing scientific cooperation with operational security as more species wanted access to human training methods. Hayes established strict protocols for sharing information while protecting the most sensitive aspects of human military psychology. Professor Kell from the Rigel Military Institute published research papers based on Derek's incident that became required reading at military academies throughout the galaxy. Kell's analysis focused on Derek's ability to de-escalate tension while maintaining tactical readiness, demonstrating principles that could be applied to diplomatic security missions across multiple species. The papers influenced military doctrine development on dozens of worlds. The Etherian Council contributed telepathic analysis of Derek's mental state during the confrontation, revealing layers of psychological control that impressed even their advanced consciousness. Elder Zephyr detected simultaneous awareness streams, including threat assessment, family protection, tactical positioning, and emotional regulation, operating without interference. The Etherians requested permission to study human meditation and stress management techniques. Dr. Bennett's team discovered that human evolution had produced unique psychological traits, combining advanced empathy with lethal combat effectiveness in ways that other species found difficult to replicate. The research suggested that humanity's violent evolutionary history had created warriors capable of extreme compassion and devastating efficiency, depending on circumstances. This combination puzzled alien researchers accustomed to species that specialized in either peaceful or aggressive behaviors. The investigation expanded to include analysis of human family structures and protective instincts, after researchers realized that Derek's motivation to protect his daughters influenced his tactical responses throughout the encounter. Alien species, with different reproductive strategies, struggled to understand the emotional intensity that drove human parental protection behaviors. The research revealed cultural factors that enhanced human military effectiveness. Commander Walsh established secure communication channels with Derek aboard the Nova Guardian to gather first-hand information about his training and psychological preparation. Derek participated willingly, but remained puzzled by the level of attention his breakfast encounter had generated across the galaxy. Walsh explained that his behavior had provided valuable insight into human capabilities that influenced diplomatic and military relationships. The Andromedan Collective sent their most experienced military psychologists to observe Bennett's research after their initial request for human advisors was approved by the Galactic Defense Council. The Andromedans possessed superior physical capabilities but recognized that their warriors lacked the mental resilience demonstrated by human special operations personnel. They hoped to incorporate human psychological training methods into their own military programs. The Vorthon Collective contributed logical analysis systems to help process the massive amount of data generated by the investigation. Vorthon researchers applied their systematic thinking to understand human emotional responses that seemed chaotic to their ordered consciousness. The collaboration produced unexpected insights into the relationship between human emotions and tactical effectiveness under stress conditions. Derek's service record became a classified case study examined by military planners across dozens of worlds as they tried to understand how human training produced such consistent results. The investigation revealed that the Navy SEAL program had developed methods for psychological conditioning that exceeded anything achieved by other galactic civilizations. The findings influenced recruitment and training policies throughout the Allied military forces. Angela Johnson agreed to participate in family dynamic studies after researchers explained how Derek's protective instincts had influenced his tactical responses during the police encounter. The interviews revealed the emotional foundation that supported human military effectiveness as families provided motivation for warriors to develop and maintain their psychological resilience. Angela's insights helped alien researchers understand human cultural factors. Maya and Zoe underwent gentle psychological evaluation to understand how human children developed the emotional bonds that motivated their parents' protective behaviors. The research revealed early socialization patterns that created the family loyalty driving human military psychology. The findings influenced alien understanding of human society and military culture across multiple academic disciplines. The investigation produced comprehensive documentation of human psychological advantages that changed galactic military thinking while revealing the emotional and cultural foundations that supported human warrior effectiveness in interstellar conflicts. Within 3 hours of the incident at Murphy's Diner, news feeds across Earth carried footage of Derek's confrontation with the Phoenix police. The holographic badge display had been captured clearly by multiple recording devices as witnesses shared their documentation of the event through social media networks. The story spread rapidly as people recognized the significance of seeing actual galactic military credentials during a routine police encounter. Admiral Patricia Hayes reviewed the incident footage from her office aboard the Titan station while drinking her morning coffee. She had known Derek for 8 years since recruiting him from Earth's Navy SEAL program, and watching him excel in interstellar operations beyond anything she had imagined possible. The Admiral's weathered face showed concern as she observed Derek's restraint during the confrontation while protecting his frightened family. The footage revealed details that impressed Hayes even more than Derek's obvious professionalism under pressure. His positioning throughout the encounter maintained tactical advantage while appearing completely non-threatening to civilian observers. Every movement demonstrated the training that made human warriors so effective. In galactic conflicts where split-second decisions determined success or failure against alien adversaries, Hayes activated her communication system and sent priority messages to the Galactic Defense Council leadership requesting immediate analysis of the incident. She knew that other species monitored human communications and would soon be studying Derek's behavior for insights into human military psychology. The Admiral wanted her own experts to review the footage before alien intelligence services drew their own conclusions. Meanwhile, on Zentara Prime, Ambassador Crix watched human news broadcasts with fascination as his pale blue features reflected the glow from multiple display screens. The Zentaran Federation had been humanity's ally for 5 years, but Crix still struggled to understand how such a young species could consistently outperform seasoned galactic civilizations in military operations. The diner footage provided unexpected answers to questions that had puzzled Zentaran strategists for months. Crix observed Derek's behavior with the analytical mind of a career diplomat who had studied dozens of species during his long service. The human's ability to remain calm while simultaneously assessing threats impressed the ambassador, who had witnessed Zentaran warriors lose composure under far less stressful circumstances. Derek's protective positioning around his family demonstrated instincts that Zentaran military training struggled to develop artificially. The ambassador activated his private communication channel to General Vasquez, Zentaran military headquarters on their moon base. "General, you need to review the human footage from Earth immediately," Crix transmitted while highlighting specific moments from Derek's encounter. "This shows natural warrior instincts that our training programs have been trying to replicate for decades." General Vasquez received the transmission while conducting routine military exercises with his elite guard units. The grizzled Zentaran officer had fought alongside human forces during the Proxima campaigns and developed deep respect for their combat effectiveness. Watching Derek's composed response to civilian hostility reinforced Vasquez's belief that human warriors possessed qualities that couldn't be taught through conventional training methods. On the crystal cities of Altair 7, the Philosophical Etherian Council gathered to discuss the implications of human behavior under stress. The telepathic species found Derek's mental discipline particularly fascinating, as they could sense emotional control that exceeded anything they had encountered in other warrior cultures. Elder Zephyr projected thoughts of admiration to her council members as they analyzed Derek's multitasking abilities. The Etherians possessed advanced mental capabilities that allowed them to process multiple consciousness streams simultaneously, but Derek's performance suggested that humans achieved similar results through training and natural instinct. The council voted to request detailed information about human military psychology from the Galactic Defense Council for inclusion in their cultural studies database back on Earth. Derek returned to his duties aboard the interstellar vessel Nova Guardian, completely unaware that his breakfast encounter had become required. Viewing in military academies across 17 star systems, Captain Helen Price briefed him on routine patrol assignments while avoiding mention of the incident that had already reached the highest levels of galactic command structure. Derek's fellow crew members treated him normally during shift changes and mission preparations, but several had privately reviewed the footage with professional interest. Lieutenant Commander Jack Murphy expressed quiet admiration for Derek's handling of the situation, while Weapons Specialist Linda Cross noted his tactical awareness throughout the encounter with obvious approval from her years of combat experience. The footage reached the reformed Kraxan Empire on Mars Base 7, where General Vex studied human behavior with the intensity of someone who had fought against Derek's species during the border wars. The battle-scarred Kraxan commander recognized tactical thinking in Derek's movements that impressed even his warrior-obsessed culture. Vex forwarded the footage to the Kraxan War Council with recommendations for studying human training methods. Dr. Carl Bennett at the Xenopsychology Institute received urgent funding to establish a research program studying human behavioral patterns under stress. The incident provided perfect documentation of human responses that other species found mysterious and difficult to understand. Bennett assembled a team of researchers from multiple disciplines to analyze why humans could maintain composure while remaining tactically prepared Angela Johnson returned to her job as a civilian engineer on Luna Base, while trying to process the emotional impact of watching her husband remain calm during such obvious hostility. She had always known about Derek's military background, but seeing him demonstrate those skills while protecting their daughters created new appreciation for the pressures he faced during interstellar operations. Maya and Zoe attended their regular school sessions on Earth, but found themselves answering questions from teachers and classmates about their father's glowing badge. The twins enjoyed the attention while remaining too young to understand the broader implications of their breakfast being interrupted by police officers who didn't understand what they were confronting. News analysts across human civilization debated the incident while alien species monitored their discussions for insights into human culture and military philosophy. The simple confrontation at Murphy's Diner had become a window into humanity's warrior nature that provided valuable intelligence to allies and potential enemies throughout the galaxy. Derek's calm professionalism had demonstrated qualities that other species respected above technological superiority or numerical advantage. Derek's hand emerged from his jacket holding a badge that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. The identification card displayed holographic symbols that rotated slowly above its surface, while strange alien text scrolled along the bottom edge. Officer Brooks stepped backward as the badge activated, recognition protocols in his equipment belt causing several devices to emit soft beeping sounds. The Galactic Defense Council insignia dominated the center of the badge with its distinctive pattern of interlocking rings representing the 47 member worlds of the Alliance. Below the symbol, Derek's name appeared in both human English and the Universal Galactic Script, used for official communications between species. His rank designation showed as Special Operations Commander with clearance levels that exceeded anything Brooks had ever encountered. Carter's communication device began buzzing urgently as automated systems detected the presence of high-level galactic credentials. Her face went pale as she read the priority alerts flooding her screen from federal authorities, who were being automatically notified of the situation. Brooks stared at the badge in stunned silence while Derek maintained his calm professional demeanor. Commander Derek Johnson, Navy. SEAL Special Operations Division, Galactic Defense Council, Derek said quietly while holding the badge steady for both officers to examine clearly. Service number 774 Alpha Zulu 9 with current assignment to Interstellar Threat Assessment and Response. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to command in the most dangerous situations imaginable. The badge projected a small holographic display showing Derek's service record, including his participation in the Proxima Centauri conflicts and his role in the Battle of Kepler Station. Brooks watched in growing horror as he realized the magnitude of his mistake while Carter frantically tried to contact her supervisor through increasingly urgent communications. Angela relaxed slightly as she recognized the shift in power dynamics but kept her daughters close while they continued crying softly. Maya and Zoe stared at their father's glowing badge with wide eyes as the pretty lights danced above its surface. Other diners leaned forward trying to get a better view of the mysterious identification that had completely changed the atmosphere in the restaurant. Derek's neural implant activated automatically as the badge established connection with galactic security networks. Within seconds, his credentials were verified through systems spanning multiple star systems, while his current status was confirmed by the Galactic Defense Council headquarters on Titan. The verification process sent ripples through various military and civilian networks as Derek's location and situation became known to authorities far beyond Earth. Brooks fumbled with his equipment as warning messages continued appearing on his displays. His racial hostility evaporated instantly as he realized he was confronting one of humanity's most elite warriors. Carter received an urgent call from Police Chief Martinez, who had just been contacted by federal agents demanding immediate information about the situation at Murphy's Diner. "Sir, I apologize for any misunderstanding," Brooks stammered while backing away from Derek's position. "We were responding to a civilian complaint, but obviously there's been some kind of mistake." His voice shook with nervous energy as he tried to salvage a situation that had spiraled completely beyond his control. Derek returned the badge to his jacket while maintaining eye contact with both officers. The mistake was assuming my family posed any threat to anyone, he said calmly. We came here for breakfast and found ourselves treated like criminals for no reason other than the color of our skin. His words carried quiet dignity that made several diners nod in agreement. The restaurant's communication system activated as Nancy received urgent calls from corporate headquarters and local news outlets who had been monitoring police communications. The incident was already spreading beyond the immediate location as recorded. Footage began circulating through social media networks and news feeds across the planet. Carter's equipment registered another priority alert as Admiral Patricia Hayes from the Galactic Defense Council attempted to establish direct communication with Derek. The Admiral's concern was evident as she tried to understand why one of her most valued operatives was involved in a civilian police incident on Earth. Derek's own communication device chimed softly as messages began arriving from his commanding officers and fellow service members who had been notified of the situation through military channels. The automated alert system had triggered responses from security agencies across multiple worlds as Derek's credentials activated protocols designed to protect high-value galactic personnel. Brooks continued backing away while Carter ended her call with obvious relief that backup was already en route. Commander, we'll be leaving now and there won't be any further issues, Carter said while grabbing her partner's arm. Thank you for your patience and cooperation during this unfortunate incident. Derek remained standing beside his table as the officers retreated toward the exit. My daughters were frightened by your aggressive behavior, he said firmly. That's something that can't be undone by simply walking away. His words carried the weight of a father's, protective anger tempered by professional restraint. Angela stood up and moved to Derek's side while Maya and Zoe clung to their parents. The family presented a united front as other diners began approaching to offer support and express their outrage at what they had witnessed. Nancy appeared with the restaurant manager who immediately began apologizing for the disruption. To their meal, the officers left Murphy's diner as quickly as possible while Derek's communication device continued receiving messages from increasingly high-level military and government officials. What had started as a simple family breakfast had become an interstellar incident that would soon reach the highest levels of galactic command. Derek helped his daughters back into their seats and tried to restore some normalcy to their interrupted meal. Maya looked up at him with tear-filled eyes and asked why the policemen were so mean. Derek knelt beside her chair and explained that sometimes people make mistakes, but that everything was okay now. The badge remained hidden in his jacket, but its brief appearance had changed everything. Across the galaxy, monitoring systems were already analyzing the incident while various species studied the human behavior they had witnessed. Derek's calm professionalism under pressure had provided alien civilizations with unexpected insight into humanity's military effectiveness and warrior culture. The morning sun filtered through the dusty windows of Murphy's Diner in downtown Phoenix as Derek Johnson cut his daughter's pancakes into small pieces. His wife Angela sipped her coffee while watching their twin daughters Maya and Zoe argue over who got the last piece of bacon. The year 2157 had brought many changes to Earth, but family breakfast remained the same simple pleasure it had always been. Derek smiled as Maya made airplane noises while feeding herself syrup-covered pancakes. His dark skin showed the faint scars of combat missions that took him far beyond Earth's atmosphere. But here in this moment, he was just a father enjoying Saturday morning with his family. Angela reached across the table to wipe Zoe's sticky fingers while the little girl giggled and tried to escape her mother's gentle cleaning. The diner buzzed with typical weekend activity as families and workers grabbed breakfast before starting their day. Old Murphy himself worked the grill while his daughter Nancy served tables with practiced efficiency. The smell of bacon and coffee mixed with the sounds of conversation and clinking dishes created the comfortable atmosphere that had made this place a neighborhood favorite for decades. Derek noticed the two police officers the moment they entered through the front door. His military training made him aware of his surroundings at all times, even during peaceful family moments. Officer Kevin Brooks was a tall white man with pale eyes that scanned the room with obvious suspicion. His partner, Lisa Carter, followed, close behind, looking equally stern as they approached the counter. The officers spoke quietly with Nancy for several minutes while Derek continued, helping his daughters with their breakfast. He felt Angela's questioning glance and gave her a reassuring smile that everything was fine. Maya and Zoe remained focused on their food, completely unaware of any tension building in the small restaurant. Nancy pointed toward Derek's table during her conversation with the officers. Derek's jaw tightened slightly as he realized they were discussing his family, but he kept his expression calm and continued cutting Zoe's pancakes. Angela noticed the direction of the conversation and her hand found Derek's arm in a gesture of concern. Officer Brooks approached their table with his hand resting on his equipment belt while Carter positioned herself near the exit. The other diners began to notice the police presence and several conversations quieted as people turned to watch what was happening. Derek set down his knife and fork, then placed his hands visible on the table in a non-threatening position. Brooks stopped beside their booth and looked down at Derek with cold authority. "Sir, I need to see some identification," he said in a voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear clearly. Derek nodded politely and reached slowly for his wallet while keeping his movements deliberate and visible. Angela pulled Maya and Zoe closer to her side of the booth as the girls looked up at the officer with wide, curious eyes. "Is there a problem, officer?" Derek asked in a calm, steady voice as he handed over his identification card. Brooks examined the card with exaggerated thoroughness, while Carter watched Derek's every movement from her position near the door. The silence stretched uncomfortably as other diners stopped eating to observe the confrontation developing before them. Brooks handed the card back with obvious reluctance. "We received a call about suspicious activity," he announced loudly enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "Someone reported seeing unusual behavior from your table," he continued while staring directly at Derek with unconcealed hostility. Derek's military training kicked in as he assessed the situation while maintaining his protective position between the officers and his family. Angela's grip tightened on her daughters as Maya began to whimper softly. "Daddy, why is the policeman angry?" Zoe whispered in a small, frightened voice that carried clearly in the suddenly quiet diner. Derek reached over to touch his daughter's hand while keeping his eyes on Brooks, who seemed to be enjoying the power he held over the family. "We're not doing anything wrong," Angela said firmly while holding her daughters close. "We're just having breakfast with our children," she added, looking directly at Carter, who avoided making eye contact. Brooks stepped closer to the table and Derek felt his muscles tense as his protective instincts engaged fully. "I'll determine what's wrong here," Brooks replied with growing aggression in his voice. "Stand up and step away from the table," he ordered, while placing his hand more prominently on his weapon. Derek remained seated and kept his voice level as he responded. "Officer, we're complying with your requests, but my children are scared and we'd like to finish our meal." Carter moved closer as Brooks became more agitated by Derek's calm refusal to be intimidated. "Sir, you need to follow instructions or we'll have a problem," Brooks threatened while several diners began recording the incident with their neural implants. Derek could see Nancy behind the counter speaking urgently into her communication device, probably calling the restaurant manager. Maya started crying as the tension escalated and Derek's jaw clenched with the effort of controlling his anger. "You're frightening my daughters," he said quietly but firmly. "We've shown identification and answered your questions, so please let us finish our breakfast in peace." Brooks leaned forward aggressively while Carter prepared to intervene if necessary. "Don't tell me how to do my job," Brooks snapped while pointing his finger at Derek's face. "I think you people need to learn some respect," he added with obvious racial hostility that made several diners gasp audibly. Derek's eyes hardened, but his voice remained controlled as 20 years of military discipline took over completely. Angela wrapped her arms around both daughters as they began crying harder. The entire restaurant watched in shocked silence as the confrontation reached a dangerous point. Derek slowly stood up while keeping his hands visible and his movements non-threatening despite the rage building inside him. "Officer, I'm going to reach into my jacket for additional identification," Derek announced clearly. "I'm moving slowly and my hands will remain visible at all times." Brooks stepped back and placed his hand on his weapon while Carter prepared to support her partner if needed. Derek's fingers found the special badge hidden in his inner jacket pocket. 20 years of elite military service and countless missions beyond Earth's atmosphere had earned him credentials that few people ever saw. As his hand closed around the badge, he knew that everything was about to change forever.